About to begin now. Who's ready to get their game on?
Yeah!
Everyone ready to rev it up? Okay, well, I don't see any Yu-Gi-Oh! Voice actors because I can barely see in this wig. Let's go ahead and get our amazing cast on stage here in order of their billing. Starting with, you know him as the voice of Joey Wheeler, among other characters, Mr. Wayne Grayson. And then afterwards, you almost saw him get on the stage a little too soon, Mr. Yusei Fudo himself and Tristan Taylor from the original series, Greg Abbey. Joining us next is one of the finest duelists we've ever seen. You know her as my Valentine. It is Megan Hollingshead.
Go Megan!
And then up next is everyone's favorite little brother they wish they had. It is Mokuba, Miss Tara Sands. And finally, last but not least, and not because of any pre-planned coincidences, you know him as the voice of Maximillion Pegasus. It is Darren Dunstan. I will be your host for this panel, moderating Pheromone, but honestly, the real important people are sitting to my side. And there should be another mic down there. We're going to end up passing this down the road.
There is.
Oh, good. So, this is what's crazy. You guys started this job more than 20 years ago, so I'd like to ask first and foremost, not because of that, how does it feel to be loved for these characters that you started so many years ago, still loved so dearly?
It is crazy and unexpected.
Yeah, it's okay.
He gave it to me. Yeah, I mean, so many of characters you play last for an episode or a season maybe, and the fact that this is 20 years later still, we're still talking to each other, and we're still enjoying and sharing these characters. It's amazing. We're very lucky.
I should never be put in charge of development at a studio because I can never tell you which shows are going to be hits and which ones are not. So again, I did like working on the show and I loved it, but if I could never guess which shows we'd still be talking about today. So I'm so glad it's this one because I like all these people so much and I love playing this character so much, and I'm so glad it endures and that we get to meet you guys. So thank you for being here. I half clapped for you. I am really humbled to have been part of your lives. People have said, I grew up with you and this show meant such and such to me, and that's crazy. I did not, we record by ourselves, so it's only coming to events like this that we get to hear what the show meant to you, and that's so delightful.
I agree with everything that everyone has said. And yeah, it's hard to imagine at the time when we were doing the show that 20 years later that we would be doing this. And it's great for a few reasons. It's always great to meet the fans. The fans are always really wonderful that come up and talk to us about the shows. And it's also nice because as all of us have probably talked about at some point, we had a lot of fun at the time working together and going out together. There was a really amazing collection of voiceover artists and actors at the time. So to be able for all of us to spend time together again and with fans is great.
Every folksy anecdote has been told that we pre-planned, so I'm out of stuff to say. That's not true. This has been a wonderful experience, and as Tara had said, I had no idea this was going to go anywhere, Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time, I auditioned for Pokemon and didn't get anything, so I had super sour grapes about it, and when Yu-Gi-Oh! Came around, I was like, oh, it's a Pokemon knockoff, and here we are. And the side benefits have been amazing. We've traveled the world, we've made great friends, we've been to each other's weddings, we've seen our kids grow up together. It's been very profoundly touching. I'm gonna go cry. Radio shows and doing all the voices and just for my own edification. And it sounds, you hear Joey in there too. Like you hear the voices I do now, like my accent work is just as good then when I was 12 as it is now. So I just would do all that, and I didn't know that voiceover was a career until very much later. The story I like to tell is that the Joey accent is my natural accent. I spoke that way for real for 18 years, and shook it because I wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. And I was really just Shakespeare and classical theater, so I went to college and shook the accent. And pretty much my first big job out of college was Joey's voice. So life is pretty ironic, and I regret nothing. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, so I studied acting in college. Actually, Dan Green and I were in school together. We met when we were 18 and lived together and studied it. We went to Rutgers, and then when we got out of college, our third roommate, Tony Salerno, was an anime director. So as he said, a lot of acting is, I mean, I think it helps if you have some training, but then a lot of it is relationships and circumstance and who you meet. So when Dan and I got out of school, I think a year or two after we graduated, Tony started directing anime, and he brought Dan and I in a couple projects, and then I randomly one day just said, you know, I think there's this audition for Yu-Gi-Oh! We were living in New York City. So Dan and I went down and auditioned, and I ended up getting Tristan. Dan got obviously Yugi, and then once we were in the fold there, we got to audition for the other shows. But that's how it started. It was really our friend Tony who got us into it.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on that. That your friend got you into it. There's, you know, you can say it like, oh, it's who you know, but it's the warm and fuzzy version of that. It's your community. So a lot of people talk about wanting to go into voice acting, and you know, how do I get an agent, which is part of a lot of our journey. But taking classes and doing theater, like community theater or groups for free, is how you build your community. And you know, with the tide rise all boats, and you'll just have a blast. You know, Greg didn't hang out with Tony and Dan because they would get a foot in the door. They're just, you find...
That's what I did.
Yeah. You find people that you love, that you're creatively inspired by, and your journey does become intertwined. So I just want to throw that out there for advice. Getting into the business is continue to take classes, continue to do workshops, continue to seek ways to work for free, because you'll find other people trying to do the same thing.
That I did it. I was in New Jersey in high school. I was in a local singing competition at the Y, and there was a talent manager there, and they're like, "Hey, kid," and I went to meet in their office, and they said, "We want to send you on a voiceover audition," and I said, "What's that?" And they're like, "It's the talking part of a commercial, basically." So my very first voiceover audition was for wart cream, Compound W wart cream. I had to say something like, "Ew, gross, a wart." And I booked it, and my mom was like, "They're gonna pay you for that? You're going to college in a few years. Let's do this." So it was very traditional. I started doing auditioning for commercials and things, and then when I studied theater in college, and this was one of Pokemon was my first anime job. I don't know how I got it. I had been dropping off my cassette demo wherever I could, just hustling. I mean, it was the opposite of having a friend help me out. Honestly, it was like, I want to do this, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get it. So, and then the classes help, and all of that. And then it is who you know. And then I got to meet all these people, and now we all try to look out for each other, which is amazing. So, yeah.
I was a theater guy. I came from a theater background, and theater people tend to be really good at voiceover, animation voiceover. Like, the skills are really transferable energy-wise and being creative, and so I happened to be doing a live show, and the same producers were casting this new... I was in the national tour of Pokemon Live.
Yeah! Whoa!
I don't like to throw that around.
There's a documentary on it. Streaming.
Yes, and so those producers were casting this new cartoon. I knew nothing about animation voiceover. They took a chance on me, and there he is. There he is.
So, speaking about the process of becoming a voice actor, obviously we had to either audition or become part of Yu-Gi-Oh! Somehow. So, how did you come up with your initial take for your characters? And because you've all done, a little bit here and there, it doesn't have to be one character, but how do we come up with our signature voices?
I have a visual aid. This is like perfect. So basically, you come into audition. You might see some actual video of the character. You might just see like a still image. And for me, it was just sort of taking all this in and deciding, okay, he is statusy. He has to be funny. He has to be legal. And so combining all those things, you just throw a voice at the wall. And especially as you get further and further in with other roles, you try to make one character not sound like the other, so that's another strategy, and you go from there.
Yeah, like Darren said, the artwork really informs the voice. Also with anime, as opposed to when we work on new animation projects, sometimes they want you to sound like the original Japanese. So we have that as a guide in our head. Traditionally, little boy voices in Japanese voices are much more are different than the way American audiences tend to want to hear their little boy voices. We go much scratchier with our voices than they do. So we played around with that. I think Eric Stewart was probably directing those episodes, and we just messed around with different voices until we found one that worked. But again, we have the original Japanese as a blueprint to work off of a lot of the time. I don't think I have anything new to add.
I can't even, I'm so old, I can't even remember the question totally, but I will say, oh right, I'm Greg. I've never, I'm not a voice actor that can do a million different voices. Like, Wayne is one of those guys. A friend of ours, Mark Thompson, is kind of a wizard that can do these crazy, so, 90% of what I've done is some variation of Tristan, essentially. But yeah, you kind of vary it based on what the director gives you, what you see in the artwork. I mean, the only thing that I did that was slightly different was when I did Raphael for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I came in, obviously I had the artwork. They said, he's angry, he's from New York. And so then it was this, So yeah, you just take what's given to you and try to come up with something new, but everything I do is basically a version of what I'm speaking as right now.
And sometimes, like when we're talking about you try to come up with something, sometimes it's not like an intellectual process. Sometimes it's as simple as looking at the costume or like in the back of your head thinking New York, and then something comes out. There's the training we've done, and then there's the relaxing part where you get to trust that all your training is there and that you can just do your thing.
Yeah, Greg was kind enough to lump me in with Mark Thompson as far as range goes. It's kind of, I guess, off the question, but it's still kind of relevant. I think when you want to pursue a career in voice acting, to have as much range as possible is really beneficial. Because a couple people came up to me today, they didn't know that I did the role of Cyrus as well as Joey and as well as Mikey, and that's great. That's a very big compliment because they're three very different voices produced by the same vocal cords. Whoa. Wow. Eh? Also, New York.
New York, huh? I was gonna say, as every series goes on, right, they might start off a little stiff and then you get a little bit more comfortable. With Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, what informed those character evolutions? Was it the script itself, or was it some of the fan reactions to Pot of Greed jokes, right guys?
Yes, Pot of Greed. Me personally, I was always very comfortable with the Joey voice because I said it was my actual voice. But I think when I got more comfortable with what the show was about and how the game was played, although I don't know how to play it, I just became a little more relaxed. I was able to take more chances, go over the top a little more, find where the top was, and decide if I should go over the top or not. Yeah, when you do a show over many, many episodes, it's gonna, if you don't evolve, it's boring. So yeah, take the chances, take the risks, and I guess sometimes the writers know that, and they are beholden to certain plot lines and game rules, but they do like the character development as well, and I think that makes it for a better show, do you not?
Hard disagree. No. Darren directs a lot, so he can probably speak more to this. I think sometimes the voice might evolve over time, and as the actor, you might not even be aware of it. I think sometimes, I mean, not so much, I'm not doing like crazy voices with Tristan or Yusei, but if you listen to the beginning, especially if you do something for 5 or 6 seasons, to the beginning season versus the last, it kind of evolves, I think, as you get more comfortable, familiar with the character. But yeah, you also have to keep an eye on that because you don't want the voice to completely change, which sometimes you can hear that in certain performances. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
No, I used to beat myself up for that, for the voice changing over time. And then I realized that Homer Simpson's voice has evolved so much. If you watch like the early Tracy Ullman episodes and then early on, and I thought, okay, if they can do it, I can do that too. And I stopped beating myself up and letting myself learn where the story went.
We are the same as the Simpsons actors, is what you're saying.
We get paid the same, so I stopped, so Mokuba, he gets kidnapped a lot, and that informs his character. Also, I realized Mokuba's purpose on the show. It's not the biggest role, but he's there to humanize Seto. So that's my function, and that informs my character. I'm there, so my scenes with him are so important to the show for that reason. It's not about me. So anytime I could be there for that, I would make sure that was the most important part of what I did that day. In the voice, vocally even too, if it made him more vulnerable so that Seto could be a better guy, that was kind of important. Because Seto's kind of a jerk other than when he's with his little brother. So, yeah.
I guess the only thing I'd add is sort of piggybacking off of what Wayne said. That you have the parameters of the plot, because it's already been animated and aired elsewhere, but it is kind of neat to see things develop, and like something that you do in the booth, a little catchphrase, even something that maybe we made up on the spot, then the writer hears and the producers hear, and then that starts to sort of reappear, like the Yugi Boys, or like, I'm sure that stuff was just sort of like a writer just like kind of taking a chance, and then you're like, oh, that's a major hook for that character, and then you kind of see, I guess they're watching the episodes and seeing what you're doing, and they feed off of that, which is nice.
Line, do I throw a tournament or do I throw a Duelist Kingdom tournament? Now I get it. Now, after I ask this question, we'll go ahead and open up for audience, right, because I've dominated enough. If you would just line up on the side here, and we'll just do it one after another, as many as we can. But before that, I'd like to ask, since Yu-Gi-Oh! Is sort of a living series where you come back to the role time and time again with these huge breaks in between, was there anything that was particularly difficult, right? Getting back into the voice, or perhaps maybe a tongue twister, I activate this effect.
What was cool about the Dark Side of Dimensions movie, the most recent one that brought back a lot of these characters, was that it also was supposed to be a little bit later in their lives. They were supposed to be a few years older, which to me took some of the pressure off, that like we were as people, 15 plus years older than when we started doing it. So it was okay that it was maybe a really old sounding Joey, just kidding. But that was kind of cool, and also just sort of like gave you a little glimpse of what's happening to these characters, that they're finally graduating and seeing that development.
Yeah, it's like seeing an old friend after 15 years, except I keep hoping Mokuba doesn't get any older because I won't be able to voice him anymore. I can't, he's gonna be like this, hey Mokuba, what's up? Yeah, no, it's not, no one's gonna buy that. That's super cool. I was not back for the most recent Yu-Gi-Oh, which is fine. Everything's fine. But my Valentine is a voice that I can slip on like a shoe. Like it just that she was one of the characters that just clicked. It was really easy for me. But other characters don't. And so like I recently revisited a game I did, and it's a small part, but they played this reference for me, and I knew it was me, but I'm like, I made those noises. All right. And so we're lucky that most directors or producers will keep voice references, so we can like go back and imitate ourselves when needed. And also like on a day like today, when I stayed up late and talked all day yesterday, like I can't sound young today. I'm glad I don't have a job today. I had, when I was working regularly for one client and went in sounding like this one day, the engineer said, don't worry, I think they're looking for a tired read today.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Megan just said, most of the characters I played I can kind of slip back into, but yeah, the director will always bring up they always have references, and so you're definitely going to want to do that sometimes, just kind of check in. Even after like 3 or 4 line reads that they play back for you, you can usually go like, oh yeah, right, okay, I got it. But it's nice to have that.
Yeah, we just say old shoe. Yeah, Joey is, I can do that at the drop of a hat. So, and the good thing is that when we are asked back, we like these roles, because I've been asked to come back and do roles that I wasn't really a fan of, but I like to get paid, so I'll do it. But whenever they ask for Joey to come back, I will drop other things to do it, because he's got a special place in my heart. He's my first big role. He's just a well-written character. I mean, well, maybe not well-written dialogue-wise, but he had an arc. He had a journey.
All right, well, I think it's time for audience questions. So again, if you would line up on the side of the stage near me. I want to start with the age of Dave. No, it'll be down.
It's hard to see so many good-looking people on stage, and it's crazy. I have a two-parter question, but I'll make it quick, okay? So.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to be in the booth with like Mark Hamill and John DiMaggio, and that's like a free class to me. I just admire them so much.
Yeah, I wasn't super. I mean, I watched cartoons when I was a kid, but wasn't sort of obsessed. I was obsessed with the Muppets, though. They were incredible. But you can answer this one.
I have some stuff to say. Not to date us, but when we were growing up, there wasn't much attention paid to who was doing the voices, and the credits went by so fast you didn't know who these people were. So I think the people that I admire in retrospect when I found out that they did this stuff. You mentioned John DiMaggio, who, obviously that now people know who he is. I like his work quite a bit. I like what's his name? Bob's Burgers Archer. It's John Benjamin. I think he's got a great voice that somehow is the same but different in everything he does. Like Archer, tonally is the same as Bob and Bob's Burgers, but it's completely different characters. And he's not really doing much to change the pitch or the timbre of his voice, which is great. Beyond voiceover stuff, though, I truly admire the work of Martin Short. He's done voiceovers here and there, and I can recognize him, but just because of that manic energy he has, and it serves every character he does. The fans win that fight. No, a fist fight? Well, should we do it right now? Should we? In life, Greg would whoop my butt bad.
You got the reach.
No, I don't.
They wouldn't fist fight. They're friends. Come on, let's hug. I mean, he kicked Tristan's ass in a duel. Because I only dueled once, I think, in a dream. So.
All those headlocks from Tristan must help out. All right, up next.
Hello. Have y'all heard of Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, and would y'all be open to being a part of that?
I vaguely recall hearing something about that. If our characters were in it, I would totally do it.
I'm going to let Darren answer, but I will say, I pitch a woman who works at Konami all the time. I'm like, you got to bring back the original cast. You got to reboot this thing, man. We all are still friends. People seem to still love the entity, so I don't know what they're waiting for.
Tara can still do the boy voice.
Yeah, gotta do it. Yeah, Season 0, I get asked about that a lot. I don't know much about it, except that it's much darker and, like, disturbing and more... Mokuba does, but again, like I've heard of, it's really more for adults than the show we made, and I would love to see that get done, and I'd even love to see a reboot, a darker, more adult reboot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Starting with Season 0. Yeah.
All right, up next. It's okay.
Hello, it's nice to meet all my favorite 4Kids actresses. When the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links came out on the mobile phone, was y'all excited to return together to voice?
Darren directed it.
Yeah, I get to direct the Duel Links game, and what's the best part of that is finding these actors who we haven't been in touch with oftentimes for 15, 20 years, finding out what they're up to, reconnecting with them, figuring out how the heck we're going to record, because they're in Budapest, and so that's been the best part for me. And also just the feedback that I've gotten, the surprise how pleased people are. They're like, oh my gosh, like sharks there, or kite, or you know, just bringing the characters back one at a time has been exciting.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, the best part is, I mean, it's fun to do the voice, but like Darren said, the 4 or 5 years we were all working at 4Kids and doing all those shows was like such an amazing time. And they're kind of still in the same offices, so just to go back down, there's like nostalgia to kind of walk through and go into the studio, because it's been, I mean, for Yu-Gi-Oh, it's been 21, 22 years now, so, 2 years. So that's the best part, and seeing Darren, but even all the people, like the engineers, because we had relationships with all those people, the producers, so that's the best part, is sort of reconnecting with those people. You good? Okay.
Conversation with Tristan and Yusei would go?
I don't know. Wayne, can you answer it? The microphone. Let's hear it.
Hey, Yusei, can I duel?
No. Let her rip. I mean, wait, let's rub it up, Tristan. Nice hair.
Another two-parter, yay. Great. First off, would you be down to do a collab like this, but a collab with your Japanese counterparts coming in from Tokyo?
Absolutely not. Of course, yes. Anything Yu-Gi-Oh, I basically just go, sure, where? Let's do it.
Had the entire cast together in one room.
Yes.
So maybe that would be the exciting thing about that. Yeah, write a letter, or, you know, send some messages on MySpace.
Start a petition.
Start sending emails to the powers that be. All right.
Kind of hard to voice, and it's kind of exhausting. So the more human moments, there weren't like a ton of those in the Yu-Gi-Oh series, but those were always the more interesting to play. I mean, and also it was a while ago, but I can remember some of the stuff between Yusei and Akiza was just to have some nice human moments with the characters was great.
Anytime Joey was being a person and nice, and because she's here, I may get a little choked up. It's been a while since we've all been together, but anytime that Mai and Joey, will they, won't they, it was more in a will they, got my heart. Got my heart.
Thank you, guys.
Purely a thank you. Your connection between me and both my sons, youngest and my oldest, which is 25, but you're also a connection between them. And they both watch it, and they talked, and they play together, and so I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so much. That's why we do it. That's great.
And speaking of thank yous, that unfortunately is all the time we have, but let's give a round of applause for our Yu-Gi-Oh! Voice cast. Darren, Dunstan, Tristan, Megan Hollingshead, Greg Abbey, and of course Wayne Grayson.